We're here to provide you some information on keeping your immune system strong during these trying times and then in the future too. So, here we are, Dr. Simperman and Dr. Gallagher from Middlesex Chiropractic Center. Dr. Simperman and I are both chiropractors and certified clinical nutritionists, and we hope to bring you some really good information that's going to support us during some trying times with our immune system and again into the future. So we hope that everyone's doing well, and you can't see us because this is our first try at this type of activity. We're pretty much computer illiterate, so we're trying our hardest to get this off to you right now. So.
And we want to remind you, too, that we have a radio show. If you'd like to tune in and listen, it's on WISR 680 AM. And this is the third Tuesday of every month from 11:15 AM to 11:45 AM. That's WISR 680 AM. And you can also listen online as well.
So how does your immune system work? That's important to know. And I think that in order for us to get better, we need to know about our bodies. So the immune system to me is like this delicious layer cake. It has many layers, and we're going to talk about the, layers that we have that can enhance our ability to fight infections and pathogens that we may encounter, and even environmental toxins that we may encounter. So we're going to go into the next slide, which is going to tell us about all the immune organs, and Dr. Simperman is going to start with those.
Well, first of all, we have the skin, and this is the outer barrier, and it protects us against invading pathogens. And then we have the respiratory system, which is lined with cilia, which are fine hair-like projections. And if we happen to inhale pathogens, these little hair-like structures called cilia, beat, and are constantly wiggling to force those pathogens out of the airways and out of the lungs and coats them with mucus and get them out of the respiratory tract. Oftentimes then they're swallowed. They get into the stomach, which is very acidic and kills most harmful pathogens. And also if they pass through there, they can get into the intestinal tract where there's different types of microbes that are beneficial to our health that will also attack those viruses and other pathogens. We have the lymphatic system, which is circulating throughout our body, carrying white blood cells, and these the lymph passes through lymph nodes, which are sort of like little checkpoints, and their white blood cells also will attack and kill these invading pathogens. And the adenoids are basically lymph nodes, which are up behind the nose, so any inhaled pathogens have to pass through there, and they're taken care of by the white blood cells that reside in that area.
We also have our gut. Our gut has many, many great bacteria, and we have stomach acid that will kill harmful bacteria and viruses once ingested. We have normal bacteria in our gut, our probiotics, our 600 different bacteria that help us to maintain an immune function. About 60 to 70% of our immune function is in our intestines. And if you're a patient of mine, you've heard me talk to you and test your spleen, your thymus. Those are the two giant immune organs. Your thymus is underneath your breastbone, and that really helps to make helper cells and regulate your immune system. And your spleen is really important to fight against bacteria and other pathogens that you may encounter. So with all of these things we have going for us, we want to make sure that we can keep them strong and healthy during trying times. So we also have different types of immunity, and I, again, believe that it's really important to understand so that you feel like you have some control over your life and your situation right now. So innate immunity, those are the organs we were just talking about. You were born with those. Those are things like your skin and the lymph and your lymph nodes and your spleen and your thymus. And everybody has a different health level when we're born and a different health level of each one of those organs. But those provide innate or overall immunity. And we have something else called acquired immunity. And this develops during our lifetime. And I love the active immunity. That is the response to an infection or a vaccine. So basically, if you were exposed to some sort of flu, cold, pathogen, bacteria, your body will make up a natural immunity to that, a lifetime immunity. It will develop antibodies to disarm that pathogen. So it's really important that we know that we have the ability to make antibodies against pathogens if our immune system is working right, if the active portion of it. Now, what is a vaccine? A vaccine is just a portion of a dead pathogen. It may be the pathogen that they're trying to have you to have a response to, or it may just be some portion thereof. And sometimes they do not work as strong, or they do not give the full immunity. So we're not going to spend a lot of times on vaccinations. I think the important thing here is that we know that we can respond to pathogens and make our own antibodies if our body is working the way we want it. Now, there's also something called passive immunity, and that is something that you got via your mother, via breast milk, or even passing through the birth canal. You can pick up bacteria and things like that that we need for our natural immunity. The other way that we can get some natural immunity is via injected antibodies from, that have the antibodies against the pathogen that we're looking for. So that's common in situations like with tetanus. So that's our types of immunity.
So let's talk a little bit about the immune response to pathogens. As Dr. Gallagher just mentioned, we have that innate or non-specific response, and there's two lines of defense here. The first we talked about briefly, the physical barriers, things like your skin, mucous membranes, saliva, tears. Now, saliva and tears have enzymes that can break down the cell walls of invading pathogens. Dr. Gallagher mentioned the natural flora that lives in your gastrointestinal tract. Many helpful microbes live in there that help to formulate 70% of our immune system and keep us healthy as long as we have a good, healthy environment for them to live in. The mucous membranes, the stomach acid, those are all part of your first line of defense. Then we have the second line of defense, which is basically a chemical response that your body goes through when it detects some sort of pathogens invading it that don't belong there. The first one is the histamine response. Now, histamine is a chemical that's released by mast cells into the bloodstream. What it does is it increases the permeability of the blood vessel walls so that immune cells can pass through the blood vessel walls and get taken to the area where the pathogens are to help fight them and kill them off. And this is the same thing that happens with the inflammatory response. There's chemicals such as bradykinins and prostaglandins, which are released into the bloodstream, increase the permeability of the blood vessel walls so that these immune fighting cells can pass through there and handle the pathogens that they need to encounter. The last chemical response would be a fever, and this is where your body detects pathogens and starts to elevate the body temperature so that it can get it outside of the temperature range that those pathogens can survive in. So fever is really a protective method that your body uses to kill off pathogens. So it's really important, sometimes unless the fever is extremely high, you don't really want to suppress it. You want to let the body do its job.
Okay, so getting deeper into that layer cake that we saw before, and I'm hoping you're not going to eat that cake. It does look really good though. The colors are awesome. So anyway, we have what we call the adaptive response, or very, very specific response to pathogens. And this is considered the third line of defense. And this is it. This is your end game on your response to invading pathogens, whether they be bacteria, whether they be environmental, whether they be viruses, flus, things like that. So what happens here is after it goes through the initial barriers and it passes through to this section and hasn't been disabled by then that pathogen will interact with white blood cells, and that pathogen is considered an antigen, or its proteins are antigens. Your body will make, using white blood cells called lymphocytes, they'll make an antibody, and the antibody and the antigen sort of attract each other and stick together. And when that happens, then the body starts to produce, via something called B cells, which is a white blood cell, a memory cell against that particular pathogen. So you will never get that again. So if there's a flu out there like H1N1 and you actually had it, then your body would have memory cells against it, and you would never get that type of flu again when it came around. So that's an example of something that we would want to happen in our body. We want to create memory cells against pathogens so that we have immunity. And the only way we can do that is by having a strong immune system.
So what could cause our immune system to be weakened? Well, we put up a number of things here, and most of them fall into the lifestyle category. Diets high in sugar and processed foods. Sugar, we know, decreases the function of our immune system. 1 teaspoon of sugar reduces your immune function for a period of about 4 hours. We know that bad fats and grains cause inflammation. We know that stress raises cortisol levels and lowers your lymphocytes that are circulating in your bloodstream. And we can see a bunch of other things here that really are important in maintaining immune health, especially poor gut health. We talk about 70% of our immune system being in our gut. And if we have poor gut health, this can seriously compromise our immune function.
I want to point out too, the lymphocytes, remember we've talked about that in the last slide, about how those lymphocytes help us to make memory of a pathogen they've encountered. So if you have a lower amount of them due to stress, it's going to be harder for you to respond. So just keep that in mind, and we're going to talk a little bit about stress and how we can manage that later on.
And also we see chronic diseases up here, and oftentimes people who are on medications for chronic diseases, the medications can help to lower their immune function as well. And as you can see here, some of those are listed. These types of medications will reduce your body's ability to fight off infections. We know that antibiotics are great for killing off bacteria. However, they also have a detrimental effect on the good bacteria that reside in your gut. And so, these good bacteria and microbes that live in your gut are a very important part of your immune system, but overuse of antibiotics can actually disrupt that balance and impair your immune function. We know that non-steroidal anti-inflammatories, or NSAIDs, also disrupt the gastrointestinal balance of good and bad bacteria and lead to what we call leaky gut, which is a condition that compromises your immune system as well. Proton pump inhibitors, they decrease your stomach acid, and so that compromises its effectiveness as well as an immune barrier.
Right. And what about the ACE2 inhibitors?
The ACE2 inhibitors actually will create more receptor sites for certain pathogens like this coronavirus to bind onto.
Well, ACE2 inhibitors are your blood pressure medications that end in OL. So if you are taking some of those medications, you might want to talk to your doctor about switching to an angiotensin type medication, and so that you don't expose yourself to that. There's lots of published studies that are really talking about this right now, that the little fingers or spikes of that virus will stick onto the receptor sites on your cells, and the ACE2 inhibitor type medications increase those receptor sites, which is, makes you more susceptible to that virus replicating in your body. So, talk to your doctor right now. If you're on those, there are definitely other things that they could switch you to. We're not able to tell you what those are. You have to go through the prescribing physicians for that.
So how do we strengthen our immune system? Well, we have 6 key areas that we need to work on here, and we'll talk about each one of them individually.
So dietary changes. Wow. Nobody wants to change their diet, but maybe we can, right? So bad fats, why is that up there? Because bad fats and oils, the hydrogenated oils, things like margarines, those and things that are like in your crackers and processed foods are really not canola oil. I know people are going, what? Canola oil? Yes, these are very highly processed oils. They are rancid most of the time. They have heavy metals in them. They disrupt your cell membrane. They disrupt your ability to make hormones. And you need to replace them with good fats and oils. They cause a lot of inflammation in the body, and we're trying to reduce the inflammation. If we encounter a pathogen and we need to use the inflammatory response of our body, we don't want to tax that part of the system by having nothing available. So we want to change our meats and fish and poultry, dairy products. We want to use things that don't have hormones in them or antibiotics, so we don't give ourselves a dose of antibiotics when we don't want it. Of course, the sugar, Dr. Simperman mentioned about how sugar suppresses our immune system. A lot of times grains and flours will also create inflammation in our gut and disrupt the natural microbiome, the bugs that live there, and cause your body to have an immune response of the wrong kind. So these are the things we want to, be aware of in our dietary changes. Always drinking more good water and adding more vegetables and fruit to your diet are important. So we have some foods that we think are the greatest things to add into your diet right now. So if you're not eating these foods, we highly recommend it. I mean, the antioxidants of blueberries and green tea, the vitamin A of sweet potato, the collagen of bone broth will help repair your gut. Garlic and mushrooms have incredible antiviral, antibacterial, antifungal properties. So these are all things that we know will help to strengthen our immune system, and we can use food as medicine in this area.
So then we need to do some exercise, and exercise is something that a lot of people like to avoid, but it's really important, and the medical news actually puts it at the top of the list for improving your immune health. And so really we're talking about just everybody should do some regularly scheduled, planned exercise. And this is going to help reduce the risk of infection. It'll also help to keep your immune system strong and delay any age-related dysfunctions that may otherwise occur. Exercise gets your heart rate up. It lowers your stress hormones. It moves the antibodies through your bloodstream more rapidly, so pathogens can be detected earlier. They're even finding that it helps improve the gut microbiome by increasing the numbers of good bacteria that live there. So I think exercise is important, but we need to differentiate a little bit between exercise and just plain movement. Movement is essential. Everybody should be moving as much as they can throughout the day, especially if you have a sit-down type of job. You should try to get up every 20 or 30 minutes, walk around, move around, get a stand-up desk, any type of walking that you do, walk up the steps instead of taking the elevator, gardening out in your yard, doing yard work, walking to mow your lawn, unless you have a really big lawn, cleaning your house, going up and down your stairs. This is all considered movement. Now, exercise is a little different because exercise has to be planned and it has to be specific to improve the 5 components of physical fitness, which you see there. So exercise really needs to be targeted towards improving your cardiovascular health, your muscle strength and endurance, your flexibility, and ultimately it will help to modify and change your body composition. So this is really something that everybody should do at least 4 or 5 times a week, probably for 20 to 30 minutes to keep their immune system in top shape. But we also have to manage our stress.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this and how stress, the cortisol coming up, high levels of cortisol are going to affect our lymphocytes, and the lymphocytes are what's going to do the work against any kind of pathogen. So the number one thing we need to think about is sleep, and I'm going to get into some things to help you with getting a better night's sleep. We want to always have a great attitude. We want to try to think positive thoughts, even if you write your affirmations down and look at them throughout the day to keep yourself focused and in the present moment. Try to do things that make you laugh. I always try to watch funny British shows because they make me laugh. People use prayer and meditation throughout the day to keep them calm. If you have a hobby, and a passion, and you can do that right now, those are the things that I recommend that you try to do for at least part of your day. Of course, exercising, which Dr. Simperman just went over, and we know that chiropractic adjustments downregulate active, sympathetic, on guard, fight or flight immune system. So we always promote that people get a chiropractic adjustment, because what it does is it will bring your body into balance and allow your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest, repair, and heal and digest portion of your nervous system, into balance. So you're not on this fight or flight, big gerbil wheel that's not allowing your body to repair or heal and rest. So, that's really important. So if you're struggling with stress management, please try to do some of these things, because I can tell you most people are experiencing some sort of anxiety because their life has changed over the last few weeks drastically, and they're trying to reaccommodate to whatever their normal is going to be for now, maybe a couple more weeks or whatever it is. But in general, this is something that if you start doing now, you'll keep it into your plan of your life in the future. So sleeping, this always is a big thing for a lot of my patients. And mostly, again, it's because they come into me and their sympathetic nervous system is in overload. They're in the fight or flight response. We live in a very stressful environment. And even now, we are living on planet Earth, and there's a lot of stress and busyness and things we have to do. And I'm happy to say that I have a couple young families that are actually really happy that they're all home right now, because they're not running around crazy, which is reducing their stress. But they have a different kind of stress. What do you do with these kids all day? But mostly they're calm and the families are connecting, which is great. But going back to a great night's sleep. So your room should always be cool and dark. Get away from those screens. The screens have light in them that re-stimulates the brain waves, keeps you awake, blocks your sleep hormones. All right. Too much caffeine will also disrupt your normal circadian rhythm, which is the wake and sleep cycle related back to the cortisol levels. So, and everybody's, really focused on melatonin. However, it's the adrenal gland that really helps with wake and sleep cycle and when the cortisol is released. So if you're under a lot of stress and you have caffeine, you're going to, really disrupt that circadian rhythm. You don't want to eat heavy meals before bed, 3 hours. It's going to take a while to digest a heavy meal. You want early day sunshine to stimulate that melatonin so you can make your own. When you start to take melatonin, you actually block your own body's ability to make it. So that's the downside of using that. Very sparingly, try to do some other of the things that we say to do that. Exercise in the morning if you can, not at night. Always have quiet time and shoot for 7 to 8 hours of good sleep to let your body repair and the immune system to reboot. You could also use sleep aids if needed, natural ones. I don't recommend anything that's over the counter. I don't, those are, we don't know what's in them. We don't know how you're going to respond. I love the main easy ones that really, put your immune system into parasympathetic, which is calcium lactate, Minchex and Mintran, which are just a combination of calcium and magnesium in easy absorbable form, so you don't need a lot of stomach acid to absorb them. And you can get into the deeper ones like the Calm and the DREM or Dream and Nevaton, and some adrenal support or ashwagandha if you're really struggling. And those things usually we need to have a little talk about. But the calcium, Minchex and Mintran are pretty easy across the board for just about most people can use those.
So Dr. Gallagher talked about how important it was to use chiropractic adjustments to downregulate that sympathetic part of your autonomic nervous system. And that's really critical. And I'm going to just put up a few studies here that people have done that show how this impacts your immune system. Now, the autonomic nervous system is intimately related to your immune function. And so it's really important to keep that autonomic nervous system, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic, in balance. And as she so nicely pointed out, nowadays, most people are on sympathetic overload. Their body is constantly in that state of alarm, fight or flight. And so this can be very detrimental to your immune function. So I'm not going to go into all of these, but I have them up here so you can just take a look at them and you can see that actually this has been well documented and it's really important, and it's often an overlooked element that people don't think of when it comes to maintaining, their immune health. Now, interestingly enough, I came across this while we were preparing this, and this is just some information that they had available from 1918 when we had the Spanish flu epidemic. And this just kind of illustrates that, chiropractic can play a vital role in improving the immune function of people in general, especially people who are under stress and who need to have a high functioning immune system. So I don't want to read it to you. You can kind of take a look at it yourself, and it just gives you some idea that, this was a long time ago. So we know from the results that the statistics that they kept back then that, chiropractors played a vital role in helping people get better and stay healthy during this crisis.
During that pandemic, which was a long time ago. So what can we do to support or enhance our immune system naturally? I have a lot of products up here. I just want to highlight some of them that I feel most people who are listening could benefit from research that we've done and research that was done by the different supplement companies. We use companies that only have products that are grown in the earth. So we use whole food supplements, botanicals, and herbals. We try not to use synthetic vitamins at all, in very rare cases. So all our products are either an herbal, botanical, or whole food supplement, barring the Smart Silver, which is a nanoparticle, not colloidal, which can go into the body and stay there and just build up over time. So that's a pretty scary thing to use only short term. So my favorite three are going to be Conjuplex, Immuneplex, and Thymex. Conjuplex and Immuneplex have been highly studied to help the body respond to an immune situation. They're very good, very safe. Conjuplex, I've had my grandbaby on since birth. He was a little preemie, and he's been on that since birth.
He likes his Thymex
Yes,
too.
yes, he carries it around and eats it and feeds it to the dog, and he's been on that one from birth too. So it's really, those are really safe products. They are known to naturally boost immune response, and they're not going to be a problem with people who have autoimmune disease. This has been studied. These products have been around since the early 1950s and earlier, and they've been used by so many people to help them support their immune. So I love those. I love vitamin D, because most of us at this time of year are at our lowest vitamin D level from not being out in the sun. So our optimum level is going to be 60 to 80, but I really like 70 to 90 to really ensure that you're getting the most immune health. That's easily looked at on a blood test, so you can get that done and, dose accordingly. You can, we know how to do the dosage to make you get to that point. Of course, our vitamin C's, our vitamin A's, echinacea can be a really good, thing to, support immune health. Echinacea actually sits on the same receptors as a cannabinoid and the CBD, so it does a lot of the same work for a lot less money. Golden seal is another really good immune herb, and we have some homeopathics and stronger immune products. So hopefully you can get this sheet. It's printed in our office. If you want a copy of it, you can let us know. We can give you a copy of this sheet. So say, for instance, you feel tired, more tired than normal. That's a sign that your body is getting ready to fight or has been exposed. Please heed that warning. If that's the case, then I really, tell you to start using some of the other products we talked about in a little bit higher dosage than just maintenance, and then possibly adding in some things like Zinc-A-Stop, which is really great for colds, VIVI and Bactrex, which are pretty amazing products in themselves. I'm just going to say a couple things about those two because they're just pretty amazing. The VIVI or the Virox, that it actually has Lomatrum dictyum in it and Polar Arc, and these were studied at University of Utah as an antiviral. So they're well studied and documented. Leptonia, which is the Lomatrium, has been used successfully during the San Francisco influenza viral epidemic. So that's in that product. Okay, so that's really important. Also, it's in Bactrex, and Bactrex also has the hydroquinone in it. So that's what people are using now as an anti-malarial drugs that they're using for COVID-19. So those are great products. I will not recommend those to people unless they've been through my office and I know their health. So, but they are very, very good products to have on hand. So say, for instance, you get a fever. What do? I like to use calcium lactate. It helps to manage the calcium withdrawal from the bones and the muscles, which make you feel achy. It helps to balance the blood temperature so that you start to respond better to the ability of your body to fight infection.
And if you start to get a sore throat, we have this herbal throat spray, which is very soothing and therapeutic for the throat. It contains a number of herbs that promote healing and decrease inflammation, and it actually tastes really good. You can spray that into your throat. It's very soothing. We also have another herbal oil, WO oil, and Dr. Gallagher is going to tell you exactly what's in that, but this is a topical oil, and you can apply it to your throat externally, and actually it's amazingly soothing to the inside of your throat, even when you apply it to your skin.
Yeah, it's a really great Chinese remedy, and it has wormseed oil, wintergreen oil, basil oil, spearmint oil, leptonia oil, and an herbal base. And that leptonia oil is the oil we were just talking about that they use in the pandemic Spanish flu in the 1900s. So it's not for ingestion, You can put it on your sinuses, on your throat. I put a little in my nasal cavities so that if I'm breathing around, that'll help to prevent any, it helps for prevention. So that's a great, a little bit goes a long way.
It really does.
Essential oil for this situation.
And so now, if you start to get some upper respiratory congestion, sinuses get plugged up, we have some interesting products over here. We have Andrographis and Albizia, which are herbal preparations that are very good for decongesting and helping to thin mucus and get that to drain out of your sinuses. We also have upper respiratory combination homeopathic, which contains some strep and staph, and this is good for upper respiratory problems as well. We have the ACX and the ACP, which are great drainage remedies that as your body fights off these pathogens, they have to be cleared and removed from your body so that they don't back up inside of you and create adverse effects. So those are great drainage remedies. The Antranex as well is very good because it modulates the histamine response, and it also helps to with drainage and decongestion.
Yeah, I like the Antranex and the Andrographis. I like the Antranex for the histamine.
It works really well for that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have a cough, well, we have some other herbs that we can use as adjunct, Broncheffect, Resco, Pulmico. These are all helps with the respiratory tract and getting inflammation and mucus out of the bronchioles and respiratory tract. So
and then we have our drainage remedies because we need to drain this out. Once our body is infected and we start the immune process, there's a lot of inflammation that takes place, and if we can't drain it out, then we're going to feel worse or build up all that waste from killing off the pathogens into our body. And sometimes that is deadly in itself. And that's what we want to be able to drain. We want our livers to work correctly because we know that viruses will pass, viral particles, pathogens will pass through that liver after they're lysed and killed off. And we need to make sure that we can get it out. Because if you can't, then you're going to have a lot more symptoms. In addition to being sick, you're going to have this, terrible symptoms of this extra inflammation created in the body of all these dead particles still being in there. And that's that's one of the bigger problems when people are sick.
Yeah, and that's a really important point. And I don't think people really understand how important that is. Your immune system has the ability to kill off pathogens and destroy them. A lot of these things that we've talked about help your body to do that more effectively. And so when those pathogens are destroyed and killed off, there's a lot of waste material that results from their being killed off. So you have to get that out of your system. It's really important.
So we want to say thank you for listening. This was our first pre-tape, so hopefully it went okay, and we will have more in the future. If you are a patient of ours and are interested in purchasing any of the immune products, please call the office, and we are giving for our Immune Strong 10% off on all our products, as we always do for those who take the time to listen and educate themselves to better their health. And those of you who are not patients in our office, we encourage you to call and talk to our staff about getting a consultation, and then we can help you strengthen your immune system or any other health condition that you might have that might be related to a nutritional deficiency, a dietary problem, or chiropractic problem. So we're here to help you. Our office, we have it set up safely. We have it disinfected regularly. We are pretty well equipped to handle patients coming in and keeping us distance from each other. Of course, our doctors are not. We're going to be right one-on-one with you, which we're okay with. So we want to let you know we're here for you if you need any help, if you are struggling with whether you should come into the office or not because you're worried about that. We will be more than happy to work with you over the phone and help you to make some decisions about your health. So we're here. You know, please use us as a good resource during this time. Most of our medical profession is overworked, and we're here as a first line for those of you who are healthy and want to stay healthy. And we hope to hear from you and be here for you during these times. Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.